Hey everyone, back tuning into the 7th update for the winter of 2015-2016. We're getting towards the crunch point now with the 1st of November today, so we've got just 1 month's worth of updates to go, and then the GarethWeatherVids.com official winter 2015-2016 podcast will be released on Tuesday the 1st of December. So we really are getting down to the key part of the updates now. We've done 6 updates so far and 2 seasonal model roundup updates. You can find all the updates on the winter updates page, and this video will eventually day-to-day be added to the winter updates page at GarethWeatherVids.com. So you can see how the story has evolved through the course of the autumn. We started at the beginning of September. As I say, we're into our final month of these updates now, and things are starting to get towards the crunch, certainly for me, in terms of coming up with this forecast. So we're going to continue to look at the things we've been looking at throughout the autumn, which is sea surface temperature, obviously what's going on in the Pacific and the Atlantic. Also going to look at solar activity, and we'll see how things have progressed. It's been a couple of weeks since we did the 6th update, so we'll see how things have progressed in the past 2 weeks across Siberia and Russia. And at the end, we'll also have a look at some charts from my good friend Stuart at chillyweather.com. We've got some analogues for anticyclonic Octobers and what they can be followed by during the winter. So a lot to be going on with for this update. Hope you enjoyed it. It's going to be quite a long update again. I'm going to try and keep it under half an hour, but it is going to be a long one. There's a lot of ground to cover. But before I get on with that, just to very quickly say about the ads at GarethWeatherVids. So things articles on the pages, so if you have browse widgets and click through the links, you'll be able to go off and read the articles if you're interested in them. And by going from GarethWeatherVids to where the article is, we'll be getting a revenue fee on what you do, and thanks very much for doing that. There's also video ads on most of the page. They open out in the content when you watch them, they'll close back up again, and it's all helping to pay for the website. So thanks so much for getting involved, and thanks for doing that. Later on today, I've got Terry's November forecast coming up, so you'll be able to see what Terry thinks is going to happen for November. And also later on, this evening, we'll do the first Christmas update and open the Amazon shop. Now, this is just for fun. People are constantly asking me when the Christmas updates are going to start at GarethWeatherVids. I do try to start them around this sort of time of year, just looking at the CFSP2 and try to get a few trends from that model at Metro Seal. But have a look at all that this evening, so come back for that later. Right, that's all the announcements done. Hopefully, I hope I haven't forgotten anything. Let's get on with the update, and we're going to start with the oceans as we normally do, actually, with these winter updates. So this was a situation in terms of the sea surface temperature anomalies across the globe where we did the last update. So this chart was generated from NOAA on the 15th of October. And of course, you know it by now. I'm sure you've been watching these updates, but I have to assume that some people are watching for the very first time. So we're interested in 2 areas specifically, or 3 really, but 2 oceans. So the Pacific first of all, this vast red area here through the Equatorial Pacific, that is the signature of El Nino. Also interested in this part of the ocean, in the northeastern part of the Pacific Ocean, around Canada and America, in this sort of zone here. And then also, of course, we're interested in what's going on in the Atlantic, the ocean that's closest to us. So we're interested in this cold blob that we've had for quite a long time now, across central and northern parts of the Atlantic Ocean, and also through what's going on through the tropical part of the Atlantic Ocean. So that's what we're interested in terms of the sea surface temperature anomalies, and that was the situation when we did the 6th winter 2015-2016 update a couple of weeks ago. Let's go and have a look what the latest chart is showing, and this is it. So dealing with the El Nino region, first of all. If we go back to the last update, there we go, we can see the red signature of El Nino, the warm temperature anomalies rising up from Peru over here towards Indonesia over here, the warm temperature, sea surface temperature anomalies rising up through the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean. If we go forwards again, we can see that strengthening of El Nino has taken place. This is a very, very strong El Nino event and a mature event now in play. So we've got a very, very strong signature for El Nino there from Peru going out into the central part of the Pacific Ocean. In terms of the northeastern Pacific, that situation a couple of weeks ago in that zone situation. Now, I think it's warmed up a little bit, actually, up there. But it has been cooling down over the past few months. I think it's beginning to warm again, can you believe? I thought that this cool down, or about the cool down we had up here over the past couple of months, was probably the start of it beginning to turn cold. Actually, we can see that it is warming again. Now, this goes along with ridging up here and around here. And when that happens, you start to send the jet stream on a northwest-southeast trajectory, and it's this warmth up here that's been partly responsible anyway for the pattern that's been setting up across America over the past couple of winters. I was a bit doubtful about the winter forecast for America, but it does look as though it's beginning to warm again up there, so maybe the ideas I had for America for this coming winter are going to be coming into play. But in terms of El Nino, definitely we are seeing a strong, we have got and we are continuing to see strengthening of El Nino. It's a strong and mature El Nino event that we now have through the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean. In terms of what's going on in the Atlantic Ocean, so let's go back again and have a look at a couple of weeks ago. This was a situation in the Northern Atlantic Ocean with the cold blob on the 15th of October. If we go back to the latest chart from the 29th, quite interesting actually. The cold blob has shrunk a bit, so it's not as large. I think you can see that, particularly on our side and up towards Iceland, things have turned a little bit warmer. But where the cold is, it's actually strengthened a little bit through this central part. So it's quite interesting what's going on there. Although it's shrinking a bit, where it's remaining cold through that central part of the Northern Atlantic, interestingly, where it remains cold, it's actually turning colder. In terms of the tropical Atlantic, again going back to a couple of weeks ago, they're going forwards to now. Still pretty warm, really, pretty much of the tropical Atlantic. So it's warm here and it's cold here. What we haven't got, though, is anything particularly warm to the south of Greenland. We want a tripole, really, a warm, cold, warm band. So we want it to turn warm there. And we don't really have that. What we're looking for, I think, over the next month or so, is to see if we can shift this cold anomaly a bit that way and then start to warm it up a bit there. If we can warm it up there and turn it a bit colder there with the warmth through the tropics, then we would have a tripod. We're not a million miles away from a tripod, but it's just subtle differences, and it's not quite right for that warm, cold, warm band. But it is interesting how this cold anomaly is hanging on through the central northern part of the Atlantic Ocean. I thought as it started to shrink a couple of weeks ago that it may be starting to go away. Not quite so sure about that. Just at the moment, this cold anomaly is strengthening where it is cold, although it's shrinking around the edges. Now, things have turned quite interesting with El Nino. What we're looking for is a Madoki or a Madaiki or a central-based El Nino. So, essentially, we want it warmer here through the central part of the equatorial Pacific and cooler here. If we can get that sort of signature, so it's warmer there and cooler there, it doesn't necessarily have to be cold there towards the Peruvian side, but just cooler than the central part, if you see what I mean. If you get that, then you've got a Madoki or a Madaiki central-based El Nino, and that sort of enhances the jet stream, the southern branch of jet stream through the South of America, can help to deliver a cold winter to America. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes that can go with a cold winter in the UK. We had it in 02-03, and that was a fairly mild winter for the UK, but we had a Madoki El Nino in 09-10, and that was cold on both sides of the Atlantic. It was cold in America and cold over on our side of the ocean as well. So we're looking to get that central part of the equatorial Pacific a bit warmer. Now, this is from tropicaltidbits.com. This is the anomaly for the region 3.4 part of the equatorial Pacific. So, again, we talk about these regions, and 3.4 is this central part, whereas 1.2 is this eastern part of the equatorial Pacific over here. So we want 1.2 to be cooler than 3.4. Essentially to get that central base El Nino. So this is the anomaly on a daily basis from tropicaltidbits.com. You can find a link to Tropical Tidbits on the links page, by the way. And this is the region 3.4, so the central part of the Pacific, first of all, equatorial Pacific. So we've got the temperature anomalies on the side, and we've got the dates along the bottom. You can see that in August, temperature anomalies were generally in this sort of zone under 2 Celsius, or above, under 2 Celsius above average, if you see what I mean. But as we've gone along with this, we've seen that the anomalies have been picking up, and certainly as we've gone into October, we've gone above 2 Celsius above average through that central part of the equatorial Pacific. So a very warm, a very big El Nino event is quite clearly taking place. It could be a record break. I'm not sure if it quite will be. The UK Met Office, interestingly, has recently called a record-breaking event. But in any case, even if we don't quite break the record of 97-98, it's going to be a mega El Nino event, this one. So you can see where we are at the moment. We're in this sort of zone, so we're above 2 Celsius above average through that central part of the equatorial Pacific. But if you have a look at 1.2, which remember is near the Peruvian coast, you can see what's happened there. And generally, we've been very close, really, through region 1.2, near the Peruvian side. We've been very close to 3.4 over the past month or so, generally above 2 Celsius, above average. But look at this drop that's taken place over the past couple of weeks. It's 17th of October, just here. That's around when we did the last update. And then we were still above 2 Celsius, above average. You can see how the anomaly has dropped, though, over the past couple of weeks. So now we're around 1 Celsius above average through region 1.2. So what we're saying with this is that clearly region 1.2 on the eastern side is cooler at the moment than 3.4, which is in the central part of the equatorial Pacific. And this is exactly what we're looking for a Madoki or a Madoki central base El Nino. Now I've got to see whether this is sustained, because this is only a few days worth of data, and we can see that over here, back in August, we did get a fairly substantial drop, just briefly through region 1.2 before it picked up again. So we've got to see whether this is sustained, or whether, in actual fact, it starts to warm again through region 1.2. If it starts to push back up there, then it won't be all that impactful. But let's see. We'll keep monitoring this over the rest of the winter updates and see whether this is the start of that central-based El Nino. If it is, it does help the chance of a cold winter in America. It could help the chance of a cold winter in the UK. Right, going on to something completely different now. I'm going to have a look at solar activity. So this is the solar disk on our side of the disk from solarham.net today. And solar activity is officially designated as low. We've got very few sunspots at the moment. One there, one there. They're quite insignificant. I mean, a very complex area of sunspots just here. Not quite sure what's going to happen with them. Things could develop a bit and maybe send activity up towards moderate values over the next few days. This looks like a very complex region of sunspots. But anyway, sunspot activity today is officially designated as low. If we have a look at this chart from our good friend James Ackwood, who sends these through every week, this is the running graph of solar activity from last winter to present. So back last winter, we was in this sort of zone just here. Got dates on the bottom of the chart again, of course. So we was in this sort of area through last winter. If we come through to where we are at the moment, we're just here with the sunspot activity. We've got a bit of a push up in activity at the end of September. Then early October, we dropped down. We have seen a rise in activity over the past week or two. We aren't back to where we was last winter, so that's the good news if you want a cold winter, because the weaker you can get the sunspot activity, the better, really, for enhancing, doesn't guarantee anything, but enhance the chances of winter blocking. So what we can see is that we have picked up a little bit from where we was at the start of October, which was just there. Nevertheless, we've still got generally weak sunspot activity at the moment, certainly weaker than last winter. And I think you can see that overall with these trend lines, which is this thick red line just here, the thick blue line, and the thick purple line, I think you can see that overall we are on a very, very gradual downwards trend without activity. We know we're going into solar minimum. We'll reach solar minimum of solar cycle 24 probably around 2019, something like that. So we're going to be on a very rapid trend now down into solar minimum. We may, however, get one more large push up in activity. We know we're following with solar cycle 24 very closely to solar cycle 12, which went from 1878 to 1890. Solar cycle 12 at this point in the solar cycle of number 12 had one last final big ramp up in activity that was sustained over quite a few weeks before then definitively dropping towards solar minimum. If we carry on following that trend with this solar cycle 12, we will get that final push up in activity. Of course, that may occur after the winter, it may occur during winter, it may occur in the next week or two before the winter, so let's wait and see where things go. But the general idea with this is the weaker the activity in terms of solar activity, the greater the chance of northern latitude blocking. Looking at the hurricane activity next, so we've got more total storms this season, but fewer hurricanes compared to last year. We've got 11 depressions designated so far for the hurricane season of 2015, 10 total storms, 3 hurricanes, and just 2 Category 3 or above hurricanes. So what's happened is that we've had more depressions and more storms in the tropical Atlantic, but they haven't really reached hurricane status very often, so fewer hurricanes compared to last year. Last year was already a very weak hurricane season. This year will be another very weak hurricane season. This will be the third one in a row. 2013 was pretty weak with the hurricane season as well. So it's going to be a weak hurricane season. The idea behind this is that the more hurricanes you get, the greater your chance later on of winter blocking, because what hurricanes are doing essentially is one of the Earth's thermostats at work. So we're dumping warmth out of the tropics, shoving them north into eventually into the polar regions. They go to mid-latitudes, but the warmth eventually gets up to polar regions. When you get a lot of hurricanes dumping a lot of warmth into the polar regions, that can increase your chance later on of winter blocking. So this sort of goes against the idea of a block winter, actually, the fact that we've got fewer hurricanes again this season. Right, let's have a look at the snow cover across Russia next, and this is the latest image when I'm doing the update from the National Ice Centre in America. So again, what we're looking for here, of course, is the snow cover across the Siberian plain. This is the far east of Siberia over here. This is Europe over here. You see that most of Russia, even into west of Russia, is now covered with snow. And most of northern Scandinavia is also covered. We've done very, very well with the snow cover across Russia again this year. I can show you all the past years back to 1998. So this is the chart for this day in 1998. And we can see how much more snow cover we've got now compared to this day in 1998. We're almost double, I think, the amount of snow cover across Russia now compared to 1998. And we're ahead of 1999. We're ahead of 2000 as well. If we go through to 2001, I think we're a little bit ahead of 2001 also. Have a look at 2002, ahead of that as well, although there was more across Scandinavia, interestingly, at this point in 2002. Probably on a par with 2003. What do we think about that? I think we're very, very close to 2003. There may be a little bit more in the west of Russia, but a little bit less in the south of Russia. So averaging it all out, we're probably close to this point in 2003. We're ahead of 2004, very close to 2005, certainly in terms of west of Russia. What happened in 2005 is that we had a rapid increase in snow cover late on. So most of this developed in the final week of October in 2005. We're ahead of 2006, although there was more across Scandinavia at this point in 2006, way ahead of 2007 and 2008 and 2009, more in Scandinavia at this point in 2009 though, ahead of 2010, ahead of 2011, 2012, very interesting. 2012 beats us. If you have a look at where we are again now and then go through to 2012, it actually beats us because we've taken the snow way into central parts of Europe by this point in 2012. That was really extraordinary what happened. And notice most of Scandinavia as well was covered by this point in 2012. I think what happened in terms of the snow cover, the very rapid increase that occurred through the final week or so of the month in October 2012, I think that did play a fairly big part actually in the cold winter that we eventually ended up with. The idea behind this is that if we had a rapid increase of snow cover across Russia and Scandinavia through the course of October, it can later on transfer into a greater chance of, I think it really transfers to a sudden stratospheric warming actually. This is more tied in to a sudden stratospheric warming than blocking. Of course, we know blocking becomes a result of a sudden stratospheric warming. But when we get these years with rapid increase of snow cover across the whole of Siberia and into Scandinavia as well for October, very often the winters that follow tend to get big sudden stratospheric warming events, and that's what happened in 2012, where we had that big sudden stratospheric warming in January 2013, which led us then into a pretty cold winter. Having a look at 2013, we're ahead of this day in 2013. And then going through to last year, 2014, again ahead of 2014. What happened there was quite interesting. We had a big increase in snow cover that virtually covered the whole of Russia with snow through the middle part of the month, happened very early on, and then it receded back at the end of the month, and noticed nothing at all in Scandinavia at this point in 2014. Even the far north of Scandinavia, around Lapland, looks like it was free of snow on this day in 2014. And then that brings us up to where we are now. We're doing really quite well. I think you can see that we're generally ahead of most of the years at this point. There are one or two that probably beat us, but we're ahead of most of the years. We've got some across northern Scandinavia as well. That's gone quite well, I think, if you're hoping for a cold winter. Couldn't really have expected much better than that, except maybe the 2012 scenario, which was to take the snow into Central Europe and possibly to build it up over Scandinavia as well. We haven't managed to do that, but we've done very well across Russia this year with the snow cover. So that becomes less influential now. Of course, we know that as we get into November, we're likely to start to cover more of Scandinavia and Eastern Europe eventually with snow cover. But by November, the feedbacks are less, if you see what I mean. So this is particularly important through October. We've done quite well. It will make up part of the winter forecast. Whether it's enough to move us to a cold winter, especially with such a big El Nino going on, I can't really say that at this stage. You'll find out on the 1st of December. But we have done quite well with snow cover. Finally, I know I've been going on a very long time, but finally I just want to leave you with October weather patterns, because I've been talking a little bit about the weather patterns through the autumn, how they can translate into specific outcomes for the winter. So in October, if you get a dry October, or maybe not so much a dry October, but an anticyclonic October, which we know will typically be quite a dry month, there is a connection there with the chance of a colder than average winter. So Stuart from chillyweather.com has created a height anomaly chart for this month, for October 2015. It's been quite an anticyclonic one. This is up to the 27th, and we can see British Isles just here. And clearly we've had above average heights dominating through the course of this month. But it's not been exceptionally dry. There has been bands of rain coming through at times, but it certainly has been more anticyclonic than a typical October would be expected to be, and that is the height anomaly that we've had through the course of this month from our good friend Stuart. Now, Stuart has had a look at all other years with dry or anticyclonic October. There's a lot of years in there. The years include, for instance, 1956, 1959, 1962, before the severely cold winter, of course, 1969, 1972, and so on, going down, 1978, 2007, and going down, I think the last year is probably 2009. So, adding all those years together, this is the reanalysis chart that we come up with this big area of above average heights, big area of high pressure sitting over the top of the country. Very similar to what we've had this month in terms of the UK. Not as similar, though, around the Atlantic sector. You'll notice, particularly around Greenland, going to the south of the country, typically in these reanalysis years, we tend to get more low pressure than we've had this month. So quite a unique and different pattern has occurred this month, but concentrating on the area of above average heights over the British Isles anyway, we can see there's quite a close match there. And if you carry this reanalysis forwards to a reanalysis for the winters that followed all of these years, this is what you come up with in terms of the overall pattern. So you tend to find quite a lot of northern blocking taking place over the northern latitude, particularly around Greenland and up towards the North Pole. You also tend to find below average heights running to the south. So a classic negative North Atlantic oscillation tends to follow an anticyclonic and dry October, with the jet stream going to the south, and of course this blocking allows colder air to come down from the north. So it does appear as though an anticyclonic and fairly dry October tends to be a signal for a colder than average winter, and certainly more blocked winter. Now, that's not always the case. You'll always get years that deviate. So within this list, and again the dates are all along the side, within this there will undoubtedly be some years that excuse me, that didn't have the dry anticyclonic October, followed by the colder and blocked winter. So you'll always get years that deviate, but when you put all the years together, even the ones that are deviating, you tend to find that the outcome for the winter after a dry anticyclonic October is colder and more blocked as well. So without quite an anticyclonic October, it could, no guarantee, but it could be a signal for something a little bit interesting to happen this winter. And when you put this with the rapid increase in snow cover that's occurred across Russia, over the past month during October, I think we've got a pretty good update here, if you like car weather. I know the last couple of updates have been a bit disappointing, especially last week's seasonal model one, and then the update before that wasn't all that good either if you want a car winter. So this one, I think it's been a little bit better, if you like a car winter, but no guarantees, of course. This isn't the final and definitive say on the matter. I'll have more re-analysis from Stuart next week. Actually, there's more information that goes with this, but I haven't got time to include it in this update. So the 8th winter update coming up next week will have more information from Stuart. But I've gone on for long enough for today. We've gone on just under half an hour at 29 minutes, so I'll better shut up and go off. Hope you enjoyed the 7th update, and just to say, tonight, or this evening, we'll be doing a brand new update, the first one for Christmas, so come back for that. Yeah, it's just for fun, but if you want to see what may be out for Christmas, come back for that tonight. Okay, that's all for now, and thanks so much for watching. Bye for now.